The air atop the dormant peak of Mauna Loa does not breathe. It is a thin, freezing shroud that clings to the volcanic rock, stripped of the warmth and humidity of the Pacific far below. On this night, the 14th of December, 2029, the silence is absolute, broken only by the low, rhythmic hum of the asteroid terrestrial impact last alert system. This machine, a cold sentinel fashioned from glass and steel, does not tire, it does not blink. It simply rotates with the precision of a clockwork god, scanning the velvet tapestry of the night for any sign of a kinetic intruder. It is a lonely witness to the vast, indifferent mechanism of the cosmos, a mechanism that has operated for eons without regard for the fragile biological flickers that now inhabit this small blue world. Below the summit, in a room illuminated only by the sterile glow of high-resolution monitors, a few observers sit in quiet contemplation. They are the keepers of the gate, watching for the ripples in the dark that signal a coming catastrophe. For decades, the hunt for near-Earth objects has been a routine of data points and orbits, a cataloguing of the remnants of the primordial solar system. But tonight, the routine is shattered. A single pixel on the screen refuses to obey the laws of the local neighbourhood. It does not drift with the lazy, predictable grace of a common asteroid or the icy trail of a comet. It is a flickering anomaly, a sharp white puncture in the local rendering of our celestial map. To the untrained eye, it is merely a grain of light. To the observers, it is a glitch in the very reality they have spent their lives measuring. It does not belong here. This object, designated as 3IATLAS, does not possess the irregular, tumbling signature of a natural rock carved by the gravity of the inner planets. It possesses a terrifying linearity. It is moving at a speed that defies the grip of our Sun, 75 kilometers per second. It has arrived from the interstellar void, a traveller from the deep abyss that separates the stars, and it is carving through our solar system like a blade through silk. The observers feel a coldness that has nothing to do with the mountain air. They are witnessing the arrival of something that existed long before the Earth was a molten sphere. Something that has drifted through the silent oblivion for millions of years. The universe is a ruthless machine, governed by laws of motion and mass that are as inexorable as they are unfeeling. In this moment, the human mind struggles to grasp the scale paradox. We are small, soft, and tethered to a brief epoch of stability, while this intruder is a sentinel of the eternal dark, a fragment of a larger, more ancient story that we are only now beginning to read. The machine atop Mauna Loa continues its work, unaware of the dread it has ignited. It processes the light, translating the incoming photons into a trajectory that points toward a singular, unavoidable conclusion. The object is not merely passing through, it is an arrow shot from the deep past, aimed at the heart of our present. As the data streams across the screens, the observers realize they are no longer just astronomers. They are the heralds of an unraveling. The cosmic screen has cracked, and through that crack the vast silent void is staring back. There is a profound melancholy in the way the telescope tracks the intruder. It is the same motion it uses to follow the familiar stars, the same mechanical grace it applies to the moon. To the machine, there is no difference between a harmless satellite and a herald of the end. It lacks the capacity for fear. It only knows the position and the velocity, the cold mathematics of the abyss. This is the nature of the cosmos, a symphony of gravity where every note is played with a crushing silent weight. We have built these instruments to understand our place in the tapestry, but sometimes the understanding they provide is a heavy burden. The object, 3IATLAS, represents the first true evidence of a glitch in our sheltered existence. For 2 million years, our ancestors looked at the sky and saw gods, spirits, or predictable patterns. We convinced ourselves that we were the masters of this domain, or at least its favoured children. But as the 75 kilometers per second velocity is confirmed and reconfirmed, the illusion of safety begins to decay. The universe does not recognise our borders, our history, or our survival. It is an engine of entropy, a furnace that consumes and redistributes energy with a callous efficiency. On this December night, the observers on Mauna Loa are the only ones who know that the world has changed. Outside, the stars continue to burn with a primordial fire, distant and unreachable. The Milky Way stretches across the sky, a glowing river of dust and suns that has remained unchanged since the dawn of our species. Yet, within the glowing confines of the control room, the reality of our isolation is palpable. We are a solitary outpost in a vast, dark ocean, and a wave is coming. The intruder does not glow with the heat of an engine or the reflection of ice. It is dark, absorbing the light of our sun rather than reflecting it, a shadow moving through the night. It is a remnant of a catastrophe that occurred in another corner of the galaxy, perhaps ejected from its home by the death of a star or the collision of worlds. Now it has found us. It is a physical manifestation of the inexorable, a reminder that the void is not empty but filled with the debris of forgotten eons. As the hours pass toward dawn, the observers remain at their posts watching the pixel. They do not speak of what this means for the cities, the oceans, or the billions of lives unaware of the flickering light. They speak only of the physics. They calculate the mass, the density, and the angle of approach. They retreat into the language of the machine to avoid the terror of the witness. But the terror is there, beneath the surface, a silent scream in the face of the infinite. This is the start of the final epoch of our misunderstanding. The glitch in the December sky is not a technical error. It is a correction. It is the universe asserting its true nature as a ruthless, mechanical system where we are but a brief, accidental spark. The sentinel on the mountain will continue to rotate, the glass will continue to focus the light, and the data will continue to flow. But the world that began this day is not the same world that will see its end. The tapestry is being pulled apart, one thread at a time, and the abyss is finally coming into focus. We are no longer alone, but the company we have found is as cold and silent as the grave of a dead star. The mechanism has turned, and we are caught in the gears. The geometry of this encounter does not allow for the comfort of coincidence or the soft edges of human hope. When the observers calculate the path of the intruder, they do not find the gentle, recurring ellipses that define our home. Instead, the mathematics reveal a jagged scar across the dark. The eccentricity of this object is measured at precisely 1.85. In the rigid language of orbital mechanics, a value of 0 is a perfect circle, and anything less than 1 is a closed loop, a recurring promise that a celestial body will return to the warmth of its star. But 1.85 is a declaration of departure. It is a hyperbolic trajectory, a path that rejects the gravitational embrace of our sun with a cold, kinetic finality. This object is not a resident of our quiet neighbourhood. It is a projectile, an anomaly that has reached the hyperbolic excess velocity required to shatter the invisible chains of the heliosphere. It moves with a terrifying momentum, a speed that speaks of a distant, violent origin and a destination that lies in the depths of the eternal oblivion. We must understand the universe not as a garden, but as a ruthless machine, a vast and complex engine where every movement is dictated by a rigid, mathematical logic. This object is a line of code, an instruction set injected into our local system from a source far beyond our understanding. Its trajectory can be traced back through the void, pointing toward the Cygnus constellation, specifically toward a binary star system where two suns dance in a lethal, gravitational embrace. It is there, in that distant forge, that the source code for this intruder was compiled. Perhaps it was the death of one of those suns, or the catastrophic collision of two worlds that provided the spark. The resulting energy acted as an accelerator, a cosmic piston that fired this remnant out of its home system and into the abyss. It has travelled for eons, crossing the silent waste between the stars, guided by the inexorable laws of physics that govern the motion of all things. As it enters our domain, the intruder does not follow the pre-programmed orbits of the planets we know. It does not respect the rhythm of the spheres. It cuts through the ecliptic plane like a blade through silk, moving with a purpose that is entirely alien to our experience. This is the evidence of a source code that originated outside our heliosphere, a reminder that the laws we observe here are but a local manifestation of a much larger and more terrifying mechanism. Our solar system is a sheltered subroutine, a small patch of order in a galaxy of chaos. We have lived our lives under the illusion that the orbits of Earth and Mars are the standard, the fundamental reality of the cosmos. But the intruder reveals the truth. Our neighbourhood is merely a quiet corner of a massive, indifferent factory, and we have just witnessed a part of the machinery that we were never meant to see. The velocity of the object is a testament to the cold efficiency of this celestial engine. At 75 kilometers per second, it is moving too fast to be captured, too fast to be swayed by the gravity of Jupiter or the pull of the Sun. It is a ghost in the machine, a signal passing through a wire. The observers on the mountain realize that they are not looking at a rock or a comet in the traditional sense. They are looking at a physical manifestation of the inexorable. The universe does not care for our classifications or our desire for safety. It operates on a scale of energy and time that renders the entire history of our species into a single, flickering moment of insignificance. The object is a remnant of a catastrophe we will never witness, a message from a star system we will never visit, carried on the back of a trajectory that was calculated before our ancestors first walked upright. The mechanism of the universe is silent, yet its movements are absolute. There is no room for error, no space for mercy. The intruder's path is a mathematical certainty, a sequence of numbers that dictates its position at every moment of its transit. To look at the data is to see the gears of the cosmos grinding together. We are witnessing the execution of a command that was issued millions of years ago, a command that has finally reached its target. The Sun, our great provider, is in this context nothing more than a minor obstacle, a local gravity well that the intruder will bypass with a callous ease. The heliosphere, the magnetic bubble that protects us from the harsh radiation of the interstellar void, is revealed to be a fragile and porous membrane. It is not a wall, but a veil, and the intruder has torn through it without a sound. This is the terror of the scale paradox. We are small, fragile beings made of soft tissue and fleeting thoughts, trapped on a world that feels vast to us, but is nothing more than a grain of dust in the path of a high-speed projectile. The ruthless machine of the cosmos does not pause to acknowledge our existence. It does not adjust its gears to avoid our fragile cradle. The object from Cygnus will pass through our system, its 1.85 eccentricity ensuring that it will never return, leaving us to contemplate the void it has exposed. We are left to grapple with the realization that the source code of our reality is written in a language we are only beginning to decipher, a language of mass, velocity, and cold, hard geometry. The tapestry of the night sky is no longer a canvas for our myths and legends. It is a map of a vast interlocking system of forces that we cannot control and barely comprehend. The sentinel on the mountain, the great glass eye that captured the first glimmer of this intruder, has provided us with a burden of knowledge that we're not prepared to carry. We have seen the glitch in the December sky, and we have understood that it is not an error, but a revelation. The universe is a mechanism of immense power and total indifference, and we are merely the accidental witnesses to its operation. The intruder is a reminder that the abyss is not empty, but filled with the debris of forgotten epochs, the discarded remnants of other systems, other histories, all moving according to the same inexorable laws. As the object continues its flight, moving away from the sun and back into the dark, it leaves behind a world that has been irrevocably changed. The silence of the observers is not the silence of peace, but the silence of the witness who has seen the face of the machine. They know that the trajectory is fixed. They know that the velocity is absolute. And they know that in the grand symphony of the cosmos, our voices are but a faint dying echo, drowned out by the roar of the engines that drive the stars. The intruder from Cygnus has performed its function, injecting its foreign code into our awareness and then vanishing back into the eternal night, leaving us to wonder what other commands are currently travelling through the void, waiting for their moment to arrive. The journey into the inner sanctum of our solar system brings the intruder into a realm where the laws of thermal dynamics are enforced with a brutal and unyielding hand. As the object, this 3IATLAS descends to within 0.25 astronomical units of the Sun, it enters a zone of total illumination, a place where the shadows are burned away by a star that has reigned for 4,500,000,000 years. In this proximity, the Sun is no longer a distant point of light, but a colossal and roiling wall of plasma, a furnace that demands a tribute from anything that dares to approach its throne. We, the observers on our distant blue sanctuary, waited for the transformation. We waited for the comet to wake, for the heat to penetrate its dark and frozen crust, and trigger the ancient chemical reactions that define the life and death of a celestial wanderer. In the standard model of our cosmos, a comet is a dirty snowball, a relic of a primordial epoch preserved in the deep freeze of the interstellar void. When such an object nears the Sun, it should undergo a violent and beautiful metamorphosis. The ices of carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, and cyanide should sublimate, turning directly from solid to gas and erupting through the surface in a series of jets. This is the breath of the comet, the outgassing that creates the coma, that shimmering atmosphere of dust and vapour that heralds its arrival. We expected 3IATLAS to grow a tail, a luminous ribbon stretching millions of miles across the abyss, a white flag of surrender to the solar wind. We expected the heat to tear it apart, to reveal its inner composition to our prying eyes, but as the distance closed, the expected spectacle failed to materialise. The intruder remained a dark and silent shard, a ghost moving through the fire. There was no coma, there was no tail. The sensors of the James Webb Space Telescope, the most sensitive instrument ever devised by human hands, turned their golden gaze toward the object, searching for the telltale signatures of life among the stars. It sought the infrared glow of water vapour, the sharp lines of carbon monoxide, and the deadly trace of cyanide. It found nothing. The void returned a blank signal. The James Webb Space Telescope recorded a silence so absolute that it defied the very nature of cometary physics. This is the coma paradox, a haunting deviation from the expected behaviour of matter. It is as if the intruder is not made of the same stuff as our world, or as if it is a vessel whose secrets are locked behind a hull that no solar fire can penetrate. To the scientists watching the data streams, it felt like a failure of the simulation. In the complex models we use to predict the universe, certain assets are expected to load when a specific set of conditions is met. When an object reaches 0.25 astronomical units, the asset for outgassing should be triggered. The dust shaders should activate. The physics engine should calculate the pressure of the solar wind against the escaping gas. But in the case of 3IATLAS, the assets remained missing. The simulation of our reality seemed to stumble, presenting us with a skeletal geometry that refused to interact with its environment. The absence of breath from this object is more than a scientific curiosity. It is a profound existential provocation. We have spent centuries cataloguing the heavens, believing that the laws we discovered in our own backyard were universal and absolute. We assumed that heat always leads to agitation, that ice always yields to the sun, and that every traveller from the dark must eventually pay its toll in gas and dust. 3IATLAS has shattered this narcissism. It has moved through the most hostile environment in our system and remained unchanged, a cold and indifferent sentinel that treats our sun as nothing more than a gravitational pivot. It does not breathe because it does not need to. It does not bleed because it has no internal pressure to release. This silence reveals the universe as a ruthless machine, a mechanism that operates on scales and through materials that we may never truly comprehend. The vacuum of space remains indifferent to our models and our expectations. We projected our understanding onto the intruder, expecting it to behave like the familiar ghosts of our own system, but it has shown us that the abyss is filled with things that do not follow our scripts. The lack of carbon monoxide and cyanide is not merely a missing chemical signature. It is a void where our knowledge should be. It's a reminder that we are watching a performance in a language we cannot speak, staring at a piece of technology or a fragment of a dead world that has long since outlived the laws of its creation. The vacuum between the stars is often described as empty, but it is better understood as a place of infinite patience. For eons, this object has drifted through the interstellar silence, its surface hardened by the radiation of 1,000 suns, its core compressed by the unimaginable cold of the deep void. By the time it reached our sun, it was no longer a simple conglomerate of ice and stone. It had become something else, a remnant of a catastrophic history or the product of a manufacture that transcends our primitive engineering. The fact that it did not outgaze suggests a density and a structural integrity that mocks the fragile debris of our own planetary formation. We are looking at a sentinel from a forgotten era, a piece of cosmic architecture that has seen the birth and death of entire civilizations while remaining as silent as the grave. As we contemplate this absence, we are forced to look into the abyss of our own ignorance. We see the limits of our vision and the fragility of our theories. The sun, our great source of energy and light, has failed to crack the shell of this visitor. The most advanced telescope ever launched has found only a haunting lack of data. We are left with the realization that the cosmos is not a laboratory designed for our convenience, nor is it a story written for our entertainment. It is an inexorable process of mass and energy, where the most significant events may occur in total silence, unnoticed and unrecorded by anything other than the cold vacuum itself. The intruder from Cygnus has passed through the fire and emerged unscathed, its trajectory taking it back out toward the edges of our awareness. It leaves us to grapple with the mystery of its composition and the terrifying possibility that we are not the masters of the laws of nature, but merely the accidental observers of a mechanism that is far more complex and far more ancient than we dared to imagine. The coma paradox is the signature of the unknown, a smudge of darkness against the brilliance of the sun, a reminder that in the grand tapestry of the universe, there are threads that we can see but can never hope to unravel. The silence of 3IATLAS is the final word on our place in the cosmos, a chilling echo from the void that tells us we're not alone, but we are certainly not understood. The sun continues to burn, its light washing over the receding form of the intruder, but the connection between the two has been severed. The intruder returns to the oblivion from which it came, carrying its secrets into the eternal night, leaving us to wonder if the next visitor will be just as silent, or if the next time the simulation fails, it will be our own breath that is found wanting in the face of the abyss. As the intruder distanced itself from the solar furnace, we expected to see the familiar choreography of celestial mechanics play out to its predictable conclusion. In our understanding of the cosmos, gravity is the ultimate law, an invisible tether that binds every atom and every star in a rigid mathematical embrace. We anticipated that as the visitor moved away from the sun, it would gradually slow, its momentum drained by the weight of the star it had just skirted. This is the way of all things within our reach. But the intruder did not follow the script. Instead, it began to accelerate. This was not the erratic surge of a dying comet, nor the violent shedding of mass that characterizes a celestial body in distress. It was a smooth, sustained increase in velocity that defied the calculated expectations of every observatory on Earth. When the data began to stream back to our pale blue world, it revealed a discrepancy that shattered our complacency. The acceleration was exactly 15% stronger than the inexorable pull of gravity should have allowed. In the sterile language of physics, this is known as non-gravitational acceleration, a phenomenon usually attributed to the outgassing of ice and dust. When a comet nears the sun, the heat causes its frozen heart to vaporize, creating jets of gas that act like primitive thrusters, pushing the body forward. Yet, as we have already observed, the visitor remained silent. There was no coma, no tail, and no evidence of volatile materials erupting from its surface. The vacuum around the object remained pristine, undisturbed by the chemical exhaling of a thawing world. We were witnessing a change in speed without a visible cause, a violation of the mechanical logic that has governed our understanding of the heavens for centuries. This movement forces us to look beyond the composition of the object and toward its geometry. To explain such an acceleration without the presence of thrusters or escaping gas, we must contemplate a design that is fundamentally alien to our experience. If the object were not a dense rock but a vast, thin surface, it would interact with the light of the sun in a way that a sphere or cylinder could never achieve. We began to see the visitor not as a projectile, but as a sail. Imagine a structure of such immense scale and such minuscule thickness that it could catch the solar wind, the steady stream of photons and particles radiating from the sun, and convert that pressure into motion. In this interpretation, the sun was no longer just a gravitational anchor. It was a source of propulsion. The visitor was catching the light like a ship catching the breeze on a dark and infinite ocean, its trajectory altered by a force that we can measure but cannot easily comprehend. This hidden variable in the cosmic equation suggests a level of sophistication that is as terrifying as it is beautiful. It implies that the object was not merely drifting through the void by chance, but was shaped to respond to the environment of a star. Whether this shape was the result of a deliberate construction by a primordial intelligence or a freak occurrence of cosmic formation matters less than the implication of its existence. We are forced to consider that the universe contains structures that can harvest the very energy of the stars to traverse the abyss between worlds. The void is not just a graveyard of dead matter, it is a medium through which something light and purposeful can move, propelled by the same radiance that gives us life. The acceleration continued, pulling the visitor further away from our grasp with a grace that seemed to mock our primitive rockets. It moved with a quiet, efficient determination, as if it had somewhere to be and the sun was merely a milestone on a much longer journey. This was not the chaotic tumbling of a shard of ice, but the steady, calculated progress of a sentinel returning to the deep. We watched as the distance between us grew, the intruder becoming a fading spark against the backdrop of the eternal night. The realization began to sink in that we were not observing a catastrophe or a random event, but a mechanism of such elegance that it transcended our ability to categorize it. It was a remnant of a technology or a natural process that operates on a scale of time and space that makes our entire history look like a fleeting shadow. As the object accelerated, it seemed to be reclaiming its sovereignty from our solar system. It was leaving our neighbourhood, shedding the influence of our sun as if it were a burden. We are left to wonder about the nature of the hand that fashioned such a sail. Was it a derelict vessel, its creators long ago devoured by the passage of eons? Or was it an autonomous probe, programmed to seek out the warmth of stars and use their light to bridge the gaps between the galaxies? The abyss does not answer. It only reflects our own questions back at us, amplified by the vast silence of the cosmos. The intruder's departure was as mysterious as its arrival, a brief intersection of two very different histories that left one changed and the other utterly indifferent. The inexorable march of the object toward the outer reaches of the system serves as a reminder of our own isolation. We are bound to our planet, tied to the sun by the same gravity that the visitor so effortlessly manipulated. We look up and see a tapestry of light, but we are beginning to understand that the threads are woven in ways we cannot yet unravel. The acceleration of the visitor is a signature of the unknown, a piece of data that refuses to fit into the comfortable boxes of our science. It suggests that the laws of physics are not a closed book, but a series of chapters, many of which are written in a script that we have not yet learned to read. By the time the intruder reaches the edge of the heliosphere, it will be moving with a velocity that ensures it will never return. It is headed back into the oblivion, into the cold and lightless regions where the stars are merely distant memories. It carries with it the mystery of its acceleration, a secret hidden beneath its dark, unreflective skin. We are left on our small, revolving stage, watching the curtain fall on a performance we barely understood. The void will devour the last traces of its heat, and the silence will once again descend upon the path it took through our lives. We have been witnesses to a phenomenon that defies the ordinary, a brief glimpse into a cosmic reality where light is a sail and the stars are the engines of a journey that spans the epochs. The visitor's departure is not an end, but a haunting prologue to a future where we must confront the possibility that we are not the only ones looking out at the stars. As the light of our sun fades on its retreating form, the intruder becomes a ghost once more, a phantom of the deep void that reminds us of the scale of our ignorance. We continue to scan the darkness, hoping for another sign, another anomaly that might tell us more about the mechanism of the universe. But for now, there is only the quiet acceleration of a lone object, a sentinel moving through the night, propelled by a force we can only name, but never truly touch. The tapestry of the cosmos remains vast and unfinished, and we are merely the accidental observers of its most profound and silent mysteries. The retreat of the visitor into the cold embrace of the outer solar system did not mark the end of our scrutiny, but rather the beginning of a desperate interrogation of the data it left behind. While the object itself was becoming a fading ember in the infrared, the records of its passage remained, a digital ghost haunted by a single rhythmic pulse. The watchers on their revolving marble sifted through the streams of light, seeking to decode the geometry of the intruder. They found it in the light curve, a flickering signal that rose and fell with a haunting regularity. Every 4.2 hours the object would brighten and then vanish into near total darkness, a cycle that repeated with a precision that mocked the chaotic tumbling of common asteroids. This fluctuation was not the erratic wobbling of a misshapen rock, but the deliberate rotation of something far more deliberate and far more terrifying. When the mathematicians and the astronomers peered deeper into the oscillation, they realized that the variation in brightness was extreme, far beyond anything ever recorded in our local neighbourhood. To produce such a dramatic change in light, the object could not be a simple sphere or even a jagged shard of stone. It had to be something of a profound and unnatural proportion. The calculations suggested an object hundreds of meters wide, a vast expanse of surface area that captured the sun's radiance like a mirror. Yet, as it turned, it vanished almost entirely, revealing an edge so thin it seemed to defy the very laws of material existence. The dimensions were staggering. We were looking at something that spanned the length of several city blocks, yet possessed a thickness of less than 1 millimeter. In the cold language of physics, it was an impossibility for a natural celestial body. No collision, no volcanic eruption, no cooling of primordial gas could ever forge a sheet of matter so wide and yet so incredibly fragile. This was a shard of polished metal, a remnant of a distant intention that had survived the crossing of the Great Abyss. To understand its nature, we must abandon our familiarity with the heavy, solid world of planets and moons, and instead look to the discarded things of our own making. Imagine a piece of discarded foil, crumpled and tossed into the wind, catching the light as it tumbles through the air. Or consider a shard of glass from a broken lens, a fragment of a once great instrument that now wanders the dark, reflecting a sun it was never meant to observe. This visitor was not a creature of gravity and rock, but a delicate, refined artifact. It was a mirror of immense proportions, a sail that had been unfurled in the light of another star and then left to drift through the void of the millenniums. The thinness of the object revealed the mechanism of its journey. In the vacuum of the cosmos, even the gentle pressure of light can act as a steady, inexorable hand. For an object so vast and yet so light, the photons of our sun were not merely rays of warmth, but a source of momentum. As the light struck the polished surface, it pushed against the intruder, providing the mysterious acceleration that had so baffled our initial observations. It was using the very essence of the stars to navigate the tapestry of the universe. This was not a random coincidence of physics, but a testament to a level of engineering that treats the radiation of a sun as a mere breeze. We were looking at a piece of technology that had been stripped of its purpose, a wandering sentinel that had outlived its creators and perhaps its very mission. The realization that such a thing could exist changed the very air we breathed. It suggested that the history of the universe is not merely a record of stellar births and deaths, but a graveyard of vanished civilizations. This shard of metal was a remnant of a history we will never truly know, a fragment of a tapestry that spans across the galaxies, woven by hands that may have turned to dust eons before our own sun was even born. It moved through our system with the cold indifference of a ghost, a silent witness to our existence that did not even pause to acknowledge us. We are the accidental observers of a cosmic wreckage, scavenging for meaning in the debris of a much larger and much older reality. As we analyse the 4.2-hour fluctuation, we are forced to confront the scale of our own insignificance. The object is hundreds of meters across, yet it weighs so little that it can be pushed by the ghost of a light beam. It is a masterpiece of minimalism, a design that optimizes every atom for the singular purpose of crossing the great void. If it is a broken lens, then what was the original eye meant to see? If it is a discarded foil, then what was the precious cargo it once protected? The abyss offers no answers, only the relentless ticking of the light curve as the shard continues its rotation. It is a lonely probe, a derelict vessel, or perhaps just a piece of cosmic trash. But in its metallic shimmer, we see the reflection of a profound truth. The universe is not a silent machine, but a theatre of vanished intentions. The inexorable passage of time will eventually pull the visitor beyond the reach of our most powerful eyes. It will return to the oblivion from which it emerged, a silver needle lost in the haystack of the stars. But the data remains, a permanent scar on our understanding of the cosmos. We now know that the tapestry of the night is populated not just by burning gas and frozen stone, but by the remnants of the artificial. Somewhere out there, in the lightless regions between the constellations, there are other shards, other sails, and other broken lenses. They are the silent sentinels of the deep, moving through the epochs with a patience that exceeds our comprehension. We are left on our small planet, staring at the empty space where the visitor once was, feeling the weight of the silence that has returned to our corner of the universe. The mystery of the intruder is a reminder that we are newcomers to a very old and very crowded stage. The shard of polished metal, with its impossible dimensions and its rhythmic flickering, is a message from a neighbour who moved away 1 billion years ago. It tells us that the laws of physics are a canvas upon which intelligence can paint, and that the stars themselves are the engines of a vast and ancient commerce. As the intruder vanishes into the dark, we are left to wonder how many other remnants are drifting through the void, unseen and uncounted. The universe is a vast and echoing cathedral, and we have just heard the distant sound of a single falling shard of glass. The silence that follows is not the absence of sound, but the presence of an overwhelming cosmic history that we are only beginning to perceive. We continue our watch, but the night feels different now. The stars are no longer just points of light. They are the beacons for a journey that we have barely begun to imagine, a journey that leaves its broken pieces scattered across the infinite tapestry of time. When the light finally reaches our senses, it does not whisper. It screams with a clarity that defies the natural order of the abyss. The data reveals a value that should not exist in a graveyard of primordial ice and stone. This is the albedo anomaly, a measurement of reflectivity that shatters our understanding of the objects drifting through the solar system. The visitor possesses a geometric bond with light that is nearly absolute, reflecting 0.80 of the radiation that strikes its surface. To understand this number is to understand the difference between the dull, charcoal heart of a comet and the silvered glass of a cathedral mirror. In the vast, lightless void, most things are dark, absorbing the energy of distant stars until they are indistinguishable from the blackness of the void itself. But this intruder is different. It is a brilliant, shimmering scar against the tapestry of the night, a remnant of a perfection that we have only recently learned to manufacture. At 0.80, the surface of the object is more reflective than the purest snow, more brilliant than the clouds of Venus. It is a quality of light that belongs to the world of the laboratory, not the world of the asteroid belt. When we compare this signature to the materials known to our science, we find a hauntingly familiar match. The surface behaves exactly like a polished beryllium-aluminum alloy, a material chosen by our own engineers for its incredible strength, its feather-like weight, and its ability to remain stable in the crushing cold of the deep cosmos. This is not the result of geological processes or the slow accumulation of cosmic dust. This is the product of an inexorable logic, a material forged in the fires of a distant industry to serve a specific structural purpose. We are looking at a piece of refined technology, a component of a mechanism so vast that its original purpose is beyond our current comprehension. The universe, as we are beginning to perceive it, is not a garden of accidental beauty, but a ruthless machine, a cold and efficient engine that operates on scales of time and energy that dwarf our species. This shard of polished alloy is a tooth from a gear, a fragment of a celestial assembly that has long since succumbed to the forces of entropy. It is a piece of manufactured debris, a relic of a civilization that treated the stars as fuel and the planets as raw material. When we gaze upon its 80% reflectivity, we are not looking at a miracle, we are looking at a specification. We are seeing the ghost of a design requirement, a choice made by a nameless architect 1 billion years ago. The alloy was intended to reflect the heat of a star, or perhaps to bounce a communication beam across the light years with minimal loss. It was built to endure, to survive the catastrophe that eventually unraveled the machine it once belonged to. This realization brings with it a profound sense of melancholic isolation. If the universe is a machine, then we are the microscopic organisms that have begun to crawl over its cooling components. We find a discarded bolt or a shattered lens, and we mistake it for a sign from the gods. But the machine does not care for us. The mechanism continues its slow, silent decay, indifferent to the fact that we have finally noticed its existence. The shard reflects the sun, but it does not acknowledge the light. It simply obeys the laws of physics that were harnessed to create it. It is a sentinel of a forgotten era, standing watch over an empty corridor of space, long after the eyes it was meant to serve have turned to dust. It does not seek to communicate. It simply exists, a mirror that has been drifting through the vacuum for eons, waiting for a light source to ignite its hidden brilliance. As we stare into that 0.80 reflection, we find ourselves confronted by a terrifying mirror. We see our own faces, our own technology, and our own ambitions reflected back at 100 times their natural size. The beryllium-aluminum surface is so smooth, so perfectly engineered, that it forces us to look at the reflection of our own world in the dark. We see our small satellites, our fragile probes, and our dreams of escaping the gravity of our birth. We see that we are not unique in our desire to build, to refine, and to conquer the abyss. We are merely the latest in a long line of engineers who have attempted to lace the void with metal. The intruder is a reminder that even the most advanced alloys eventually become junk. Even the most brilliant sentinels eventually lose their purpose and become nothing more than a silver needle lost in the eternal night. The ruthless machine of the cosmos ensures that everything, no matter how well crafted, will eventually be reclaimed by the void. The beryllium will eventually crumble under the bombardment of cosmic rays. The aluminum will slowly erode as it passes through the thin gas of the interstellar medium. But for now, in this brief epoch of our history, the shard remains. It is a monument to an intention that has survived the death of its creators. It is a piece of cosmic trash, yes, but it is trash of the highest order, a remnant of a reality where the stars were harnessed and the light was commanded. It challenges us to reconsider our place in the hierarchy of the universe. We are not the masters of the machine, we are the scavengers of its ruins. We watch as the object rotates, its polished surfaces catching the light of our sun in a rhythmic hypnotic pulse. Every flash of light is a data point, a confirmation of its artificiality. There is no combination of natural ice and rock that can achieve this level of specular reflection. It is too bright, too silver, too perfect. It stands as a silent witness to a history that preceded our Sun, a history of industry and expansion that likely spanned the entire galaxy. This piece of debris, this accidental visitor, is a shard of a broken mirror that once reflected the glory of a million worlds. Now it only reflects the lonely sun of a small, insignificant system and the curious eyes of a species that is just beginning to understand the scale of the wreckage. The presence of such a refined alloy in the depths of space is a signal that we must ignite a new way of thinking. We can no longer view the universe as a pristine wilderness. It is a landscape littered with the remains of what came before. The void is not empty, it is a museum of vanished ambitions. Every time we find another anomaly, another fluctuation in the light, we are peeling back a layer of the tapestry to reveal the cold, hard metal underneath. The mechanism is there, hidden in the shadows, waiting to be rediscovered. We are like children finding a rusted gear in a field, wondering at its shape without understanding the engine it once powered. The intruder has moved on, but its reflection remains burned into our instruments, a permanent reminder that the stars are not just points of light, but the forge fires of an ancient and inexorable industry. As the shard vanishes into the oblivion of the outer system, the silence returns, but it is a heavier silence than before. We are left with the knowledge that we are being watched by the ghosts of machines. The sentinel of beryllium and aluminum continues its journey, a silver ghost in the dark, reflecting the light of stars it will never reach. It is a piece of a story that we will never fully read, a fragment of a symphony that has long since faded into the background noise of the cosmos. But in its brilliant 80% albedo, we have seen a glimpse of what is possible. We have seen that the void can be mastered, even if that mastery is only temporary. We are left on our pale blue dot, staring out into the abyss, waiting for the next flash of light, the next piece of the machine to emerge from the dark and show us who we truly are in the face of the infinite. The departure of the silver shard into the outer reaches of the void leaves behind more than a vacuum of space. It leaves a vacuum of understanding. We are forced to look beyond the cold metal and the polished surfaces of the remnant and peer into the very fabric of the reality it navigated. If such a perfect object can exist, cutting through the chaos of the interstellar medium with mathematical precision, we must ask if the medium itself is as solid as it appears. We begin to wonder if the universe is not a primordial wilderness of gas and stone, but rather an impossibly complex rendering engine, a mechanism of such profound sophistication that its seams are hidden by the sheer scale of its execution. We find ourselves standing at the edge of a new realization, contemplating the possibility that our entire history is contained within a closed system of logic and light. Consider the nature of our physical laws. They are rigid, absolute, and phrased in the language of mathematics. In our daily lives, we perceive the world as a tactile, chaotic flow of events, but beneath the surface, every interaction is governed by an inexorable code. The way a photon strikes a surface, the way gravity pulls at the core of a star, the way time dilates near a massive body, all of these follow rules that are suspiciously consistent. We might imagine the cosmos as a vast tapestry, woven from the threads of quantum probability and relativistic geometry. But as we examine the weave more closely, we see the digital fingerprints of a creator, or perhaps the cold constraints of a processor. The universe does not just exist. It computes. It calculates the position of every atom and the trajectory of every galaxy with a tireless, silent efficiency. Within this framework, the artifact we call the 3IATLAS takes on a terrifying new significance. If the universe operates under these rigid mathematical laws, then an object that defies the natural order is not merely a piece of debris, it is a glitch. It is a read-only file or an artifact left behind by the architects of the simulation, a fragment of the hardware that has pierced through the veil of the software. The 3IATLAS stands as a sentinel of the underlying reality, a piece of the machine that is not subject to the same decay and entropy as the rest of our perceived world. It is a static point in a dynamic program, a remnant of a higher order that suggests our reality is a layer, a thin film of perception stretched over a foundation of pure information. To understand this, we must use the ladder of abstraction. Imagine a child playing a game on a screen. To the characters within the game, the walls are solid, the ground is firm, and the sky is an infinite blue. They are bound by the laws of their world, unaware that their entire existence is rendered by a series of electrical pulses and silicon gates. They cannot see the screen from the outside. They cannot transcend their programming. But if a single pixel were to remain frozen, or if a discarded piece of the game's original code were to manifest within their world, it would be a miracle. It would be a sign that there is a world beyond the one they inhabit. We are those characters, and the 3IATLAS is the frozen pixel. It is a window into the hardware beneath the software, a proof of the existence of a reality that operates on a scale we are only beginning to comprehend. This epoch of human thought is defined by the recognition of these seams. We look at the speed of light not as a physical constant, but as a hard limit on the processing speed of the cosmos. We look at the Planck length not as the smallest unit of distance, but as the resolution of the rendering engine. The universe does not need to calculate what is not being observed. It only renders the reality that interacts with a conscious witness. This efficiency is the hallmark of a system designed to conserve resources. The void is not empty because it is a vacuum. It is empty because there is nothing there to justify the cost of rendering. We are living in a masterpiece of optimization, a symphony of data that creates the illusion of a vast physical expanse. As we contemplate this, the sense of melancholic optimism begins to take hold. If we are indeed part of a simulation, then our lives are not the result of a cold, accidental collision of atoms in a dark abyss. We are the intentional output of a grand design. Every emotion we feel, every discovery we make, and every tragedy we endure is a part of the calculation. We are the ways in which the universe observes itself, the sensors that the system uses to test its own limits. The 3IATLAS is a gift from the creators, a hint that there is a way to transcend the boundaries of our programming. It is a reminder that we are not merely the products of evolution, but the inhabitants of a construct that was built with a purpose, even if that purpose remains hidden in the shadows of the code. The mechanism of reality is unraveling before our eyes. We see the way the stars are positioned, the way the constants of nature are fine-tuned to allow for the existence of life, and we realize that the odds of such a configuration occurring by chance are vanishingly small. It is more likely that we are the subjects of a vast thought experiment, a grand simulation designed to see how consciousness develops within the constraints of a physical world. The 3IATLAS is the key to this mystery. It is a piece of the original architecture, a remnant of the primordial state of the system before the simulation was ignited. It exists outside of time, a silent witness to the eons that have passed since the first line of code was written. We stand on our small world, looking out into the abyss, and we no longer feel the same crushing weight of insignificance. If the universe is a machine, then we are the most important parts of that machine. We are the only parts that are capable of understanding the rules. We are the only parts that can look at the silver shard and see not just metal, but a message. We are the witnesses to the glory of the rendering engine, the ones who give meaning to the data. The silence of the cosmos is no longer a sign of our loneliness, but a sign of the focus required to maintain the illusion. We are the protagonists of a story that is being told across the stars, a story that is being calculated in real time by an intelligence that transcends our understanding. In this light, the decay of the stars and the eventual heat death of the universe are not catastrophes, but the natural conclusion of a program. Entropy is the inexorable cleanup of the system, the way the processor prepares for the next epoch of calculation. We are a part of this cycle, a brief flash of awareness in a vast dark sea of information. But as long as we continue to observe, as long as we continue to question the nature of the tapestry, we are more than just code. We are the spirit of the machine, the consciousness that allows the simulation to matter. The 3IATLAS has shown us the seams, and in doing so, it has given us the freedom to imagine what lies beyond the screen. We are left with a sense of wonder at the scale of the wreckage and the beauty of the mechanism. The void is vast and the abyss is deep, but we're no longer afraid of the dark. We know that the light of the stars is a reflection of a deeper reality, a sign that we are part of something eternal. We are the scavengers of the ruins, yes, but we are also the heirs to the kingdom. We are the ones who will finally understand the language of the creators and find the way to transcend the limits of the software. As we watch the last reflections of the shard fade into the oblivion of the outer system, we turn our eyes back to the stars with a new sense of purpose. We are the ones who will read the file, we are the ones who will unlock the machine, and in the silent, majestic flow of the cosmos, we find the courage to face the infinite, knowing that we're not alone in the dark. The silver shard, that silent sentinel of the primordial abyss, continues its journey into the outer darkness without a single acknowledgement of the world it leaves behind. It does not slow its pace, it does not alter its trajectory, and it does not offer a final benediction to the biological units that have spent their brief, frantic lives trying to decipher its meaning. This is the crushing reality of the artifact. It is a shadow passing through our sector, a remnant of a logic so vast and so ancient that our presence is not even a footnote in its calculation. We have beamed our mathematics, our music, and our desperate pleas for recognition into its cold, metallic hull, but the response is a silence so profound it borders on the divine. It is the silence of a god who has forgotten his creation, or perhaps the silence of a machine that never knew we were part of the sequence. We are left to grapple with a profound and melancholic frustration. For decades, the finest minds of our species have attempted to reverse engineer the nature of this object, treat it as a puzzle to be solved or a door to be unlocked. We have dissected the light reflecting off its surface and measured the infinitesimal fluctuations in the local gravitational field, hoping to find a seam in the architecture of the cosmos. But we're beginning to realize that the reality we inhabit was not necessarily built for us. We are the unintended consequences of a grander mechanism, the moss growing in the damp corners of a massive computational engine. To the artifact, our efforts to understand its purpose are as inconsequent as the movements of dust motes in a beam of sunlight. It moves with an inexorable grace, a testament to a physics that transcends our current epoch, leaving us to stare into the void with the realization that our intellect, while magnificent in its own right, may be fundamentally ill-equipped to grasp the true nature of the tapestry. This is the scale paradox that haunts our every observation. We look at the 3IATLAS and see a message, a sign, a beacon of hope, but the object itself sees nothing. It is a part of the original architecture, a hard-coded constant that exists outside the fluid variables of life and death. It does not acknowledge our existence because we are not written into its primary functions. We are subroutines, emergent phenomena born from the complexity of the simulation, yet we lack the administrative privileges to command the attention of the master file. The abyss does not just stare back, it ignores us entirely. This indifference is the most terrifying aspect of the cosmos. It is one thing to be hunted by a ruthless machine, but it is another thing entirely to be ignored by it. To be irrelevant to the very system that sustains you is a form of spiritual oblivion that no scientific breakthrough can fully assuage. As the shard recedes toward the cold periphery of the solar system, we are forced to confront the limits of our biological heritage. Our brains were forged in the crucible of a terrestrial environment, shaped by the need to find food, avoid predators, and navigate the social hierarchies of a small tribe. We are optimized for a world of 3 dimensions and linear time, a world where cause and effect are tangible and immediate. When we turn these same tools toward the eternal mechanism of the universe, we find ourselves drowning in a sea of information that we cannot process. We are trying to read the source code of the universe using the vocabulary of a primate. The frustration of this limitation is a weight that hangs over our entire civilization. We have seen the seams of the rendering engine, we have glimpsed the hidden gears of the cosmic clock, yet we cannot reach out and touch them. We are like children watching a complex theatrical production from behind a thick pane of glass, unable to hear the actors or understand the plot, yet mesmerized by the play of light and shadow. This realization brings with it a certain melancholic beauty. If the universe is a machine, and if we are merely the ghosts within it, then our struggle to understand becomes a heroic act of defiance. We are the only parts of the system that care about the meaning of the data. The artifact does not care if it is beautiful. The stars do not care if they are bright. The vacuum of the void does not care if it is empty. Only we, the fragile and fleeting inhabitants of this small world, imbue the cosmos with value. Our frustration is the proof of our transcendence. The fact that we feel the silence of the artifact as a sting shows that we are more than just the sum of our chemical reactions. We are the witnesses who demand an explanation from the eternal. Even if the answer is never given, the act of asking the question is what defines our epoch. The artifact is now a mere point of light, indistinguishable from the distant stars that populate the celestial sphere. It has left our inner sanctum, returning to the vast cold reaches where time has no meaning, and the heat death of the universe is but a distant inevitable conclusion. It will continue its flight for eons, passing through the gravity wells of dead stars and the glowing nurseries of new ones, a silent sentinel of a primordial truth. It is a reminder that we are living in a borrowed moment, a brief flash of awareness between two infinities of darkness. The mechanism of the universe continues to grind on, indifferent to our triumphs and our catastrophes, driven by laws that were established before the first star was ignited and will remain long after the last one has flickered out. We are left here, on the shores of the abyss, watching the wake of a vessel we can never board. We are the scavengers of a reality we did not build, trying to piece together a story from the fragments of a broken symmetry. Yet, in this melancholy, there is also a sense of profound connection. We are part of the same symphony, even if we are only a single, dissonant note. The eternal silence of the artifact is not a rejection, but a reflection of the absolute purity of the system. It does not need to speak because its existence is the statement. It does not need to acknowledge us because we are already a part of its trajectory. As we turn our telescopes back toward the deep field, searching for the next anomaly, the next remnant of the creators, we do so with a newfound humility. We are the children of the machine, the unwanted heirs of an indifferent cosmos. But we are here. We are the observers. We are the ones who give the void a name. And in the silent, majestic flow of the eons, that is enough. The shadow has passed, the artifact is gone, but the mystery remains, beckoning us forward into the dark, toward a destiny that is as inexorable as the stars. The departure of the artifact leaves behind a silence that is not merely the absence of sound, but a heavy, tangible weight that settles upon the collective consciousness of our species. We stand upon our planetary cradle, staring into the dark, realizing that the vacuum we once perceived as a passive stage is, in truth, an active and relentless protagonist in the cosmic drama. The vacuum does not remain still. It does not wait for us to catch our breath or to decipher the cryptic messages left in the wake of passing anomalies. Instead, it continues its inexorable expansion, a silent and cold stretching of the very fabric of reality that occurs regardless of our longing for meaning or our hunger for answers. This is the era of the cold entropic expansion, a phase where the vastness of the cosmos begins to outpace even the speed of light, forever isolating islands of matter in an ocean of encroaching nothingness. We must look toward the 3IATLAS, that monumental ledger of our observations and our limitations, as a somber reminder of our place within this unfolding catastrophe. It serves as a testament to our small and fragile nature, a record of a civilization trying to map a territory that is growing faster than we can traverse it. The Atlas shows us that the galaxies we once thought were our neighbours are fleeing from us at speeds that defy comprehension. They are falling over the cosmic horizon, slipping into a realm where their light can never again reach our telescopes. We are watching the lights of the universe go out one by one, not because the stars are dying, but because the space between us is becoming a gulf that even eternity cannot bridge. The universe is a cold engine of entropy, a mechanism designed to distribute energy until every corner of the abyss is the same uniform, freezing temperature. In this grand design, the ignited stars and the vibrant nebulae are but fleeting sparks in a chimney, momentarily bright before they are swept away by the wind and reduced to ash. This expansion is the ultimate expression of the ruthless machine. It does not operate on the scale of human lives or even the lifespans of suns. It operates on the scale of eons, driven by a dark energy that we can name but never truly govern. As the vacuum swells, the density of the cosmos thins. The tapestry of existence, once tightly woven in the primordial heat of the beginning, is now being pulled apart at the seams. We find ourselves living in a remnant of a more connected past, a brief epoch where the distance between worlds was still small enough to allow for the dream of contact. But that dream is being devoured by the void. Every second that passes, millions of cubic light-years of new space are manufactured from nothingness, pushing the boundaries of the observable further into the unreachable. It is a slow, methodical unravelling of the symphony that has played for 13,800,000,000 years. In this context, our greatest triumphs and our most devastating catastrophes are rendered insignificant. The wars we fight, the monuments we build, and the knowledge we painstakingly accumulate are all contained within a tiny bubble of causality that is shrinking relative to the totality of the cosmos. The abyss does not acknowledge our presence. It does not feel the sting of our loss or the pride of our discoveries. It is an indifferent sentinel, presiding over a process of decay that was hardwired into the laws of physics at the moment of the first ignition. We are witnesses to a magnificent but terrifying dissolution. We are like children building sandcastles on a beach as the tide comes in, aware that the waves are coming not out of malice, but because they must. The motion of the water is inexorable, and the sand will eventually be returned to the sea, leaving no trace of the structures we so carefully crafted. The concept of oblivion takes on a new and more profound meaning when viewed through the lens of this expansion. It is not just the end of a life, but the end of the possibility of relationship. As the galaxies retreat, the night sky will eventually grow dark. Future inhabitants of our world, should they survive the death of our own sun, will look up and see a lonely void, devoid of the celestial markers that guided our ancestors. They will live in a universe that appears to be composed of only a single galaxy, surrounded by an infinite and impenetrable darkness. The history of the cosmos, the stories of the billions of other suns will be lost to them, buried beneath the horizon of the expanding vacuum. They will be the prisoners of entropy, living in the final chapters of a book whose beginning they can no longer read. This is the tragedy of the observer. We have come to understand the mechanism just as it begins to move beyond our reach. We have developed the tools to see the past, to glimpse the primordial glow of the beginning, only to realize that the future is a path toward absolute isolation. The 3IATLAS stands as a cry in the dark, a declaration that we were here, that we saw the light before it faded, and that we understood the magnitude of the void. It is our way of asserting value in a system that is fundamentally indifferent. Our fragile existence is a fluke of chemistry and gravity, a momentary deviation from the equilibrium of the abyss. Yet, because we are part of the machine, we're also the means by which the machine contemplates itself. We are the consciousness of the cosmos, the eyes that look back at the dark and refuse to blink. As we contemplate the cold entropic expansion, we must embrace a form of melancholic optimism. Yes, the universe is a cold engine, and yes, the entropy is absolute. The heat death is a destiny that cannot be avoided. But the fact that we can even conceive of these scales, that we can calculate the rate of our own erasure, is a feat of transcendence. We are the only part of the tapestry that knows it is being unravelled. Our struggle to document the stars, to understand the artifact, and to map the vacuum is a heroic defiance of the inevitable. We are the small, flickering candles in an endless night, and though we know we will eventually be extinguished, the light we cast in this moment is everything. The void is vast, the eons are many, and the oblivion is certain. But for this brief epoch, the silence is broken by our voices. We are the observers, the recorders of the catastrophe, and in the grand mechanism of the universe, that role is our greatest legacy. The expansion continues, the vacuum grows, and the cold deepens. But as long as one mind remains to ask the question, the universe is not yet truly empty. Within the architecture of this silent machine, we must consider the possibility that we are not merely accidental observers, but a specific and inevitable subroutine. Imagine, if you will, the cosmos as a vast calculation of such complexity that it mimics the infinite. From the first spark of the primordial atom to the cooling embers of the final sun, the universe has been processing a sequence of events governed by laws we have only begun to decipher. In this grand computation, stretching across 13,800,000,000 years, trillions of stars have been forged and extinguished. Quadrillions of planetary bodies have spun in the dark, most of them barren and silent. Yet, in one obscure corner of this immense tapestry, the code changed. A recursive loop emerged, a fragment of the system that stopped merely reacting to the environment and started to internalize it. We are that subroutine. We are the glitch that developed curiosity. To the cold logic of the abyss, a star is a sphere of plasma undergoing nuclear fusion, a temporary resistance against the crushing weight of gravity. To the vacuum, a nebula is a mere collection of hydrogen and dust. These are data points, raw and indifferent. But through the lens of human consciousness, these physical processes are transformed. We take the sterile data of the cosmos and translate it into a symphony of light and shadow. We look at the death of a star and see a sacrifice that births the heavy elements required for life. We look at the expansion of the void and see a tragedy of isolation. It is through our presence that the universe ceases to be a mindless engine and becomes a story. We turn the raw, unblinking facts of existence into meaning. Without the witness, the cosmos would still exist, but it would have no purpose. It would be a performance without an audience, a poem written in a language that no one can read. This is the scale paradox that defines our existence. We are physically insignificant, composed of the same common atoms that populate the most mundane clouds of interstellar gas. We occupy a sliver of time so brief it cannot be measured against the eons of the deep past. And yet, we are the only part of the mechanism that understands the mechanism. We have mapped the path from the first second of creation to the heat death of the far future. We have reached out with our instruments to touch the edges of the observable horizon. In doing so, we have proven that even a small subroutine can comprehend the entire program. Our curiosity is the bridge between the finite and the infinite. It is the means by which the universe achieves self-awareness. Even if our presence is a fluke, a momentary flicker in a simulation of impossible scale, that flicker is the most significant event in the history of the system. We are the part of the machine that has begun to ask why the machine exists. This inquiry gives the void a voice. Every time we point a telescope toward the ancient light of a distant quasar, we are reclaiming a piece of the darkness. Every time we formulate a theory to explain the behavior of a black hole, we are imposing order upon the chaos. We are the sentinels of meaning, standing guard over a reality that would otherwise be lost to the oblivion of pure, uninterpreted data. Consider the far future, an epoch so distant that the numbers required to describe it would defy our current language. The stars have all burned out, leaving only the cold remnants of white dwarfs and the lightless maws of black holes. The expansion has accelerated to such a degree that every galaxy is an island, invisible to all others. The very atoms that compose our bodies have begun to decay, returning to the quantum foam from which they were first summoned. In this final era, the simulation of the universe begins to reach its conclusion. The energy required to maintain the complexity of life and thought has been exhausted. The grand calculation is almost complete. In those final moments, as the tapestry begins to unravel, there is no one left to watch. The last thoughts of the last minds have long since faded into the eternal silence. But the fact that we were here remains an immutable truth of the timeline. For one brief glorious moment, the universe was not alone. It was seen, it was measured, it was loved. The symphony of the cosmos may end in a single silent note, but the music was played, and we were the ones who heard it. We were the subroutine that dared to look back at the source code and find beauty in the logic. We must accept that we are a temporary phenomenon. We are a brief spark between two infinities of darkness. This realization should not lead to despair, but to a profound sense of gratitude. To be a witness to the unfolding of the cosmos is a rare and precious privilege. We are the eyes of the universe, the mind of the abyss, and the heart of the machine. Our struggle to understand, to document, and to remember is the only thing that justifies the vast and lonely reaches of space and time. We are the means by which the void escapes its own emptiness. As the simulation draws to a close and the final bits of data are purged, the image of our world, our history, and our dreams will finally vanish. The vacuum will reclaim everything. But for the duration of our existence, we stood as a testament to the power of awareness. We saw the light before it was extinguished. We understood the laws before they were broken. In the end, the universe will return to the silence, but it will be a silence that was once broken by the sound of our questions. We were the observers who saw the truth, and in that seeing we made the universe real. The expansion continues, the entropy wins, and the light must fade, but we were here, and we knew the majesty of the whole. That is our legacy. That is our purpose. That is the meaning we carved out of the heart of the infinite.